Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey.
The Amber and Nigel show.
All right, well, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Good evening, good to be with you. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, and I'm happy to join you here breaking one of the 13 cardinal rules of videography and doing any kind of radio or TV, and that is we're filming the entire show today outside. And the primary reason for that is, well, because I really want to. So if you're watching the live stream on X and YouTube over at the Daily Signal, hopefully the shot looks really nice. It's just a backyard of those that we're staying with while I'm down in Nashville for a day for the Daily Wire's Am I Racist premiere, the documentary by Matt Walsh. Now, aside from the kids that are all shouting in the background, it's just a beautiful day outside. I mean, it's fantastic. Everything about the weather in the last couple of days has been perfect. The studio project for the new studio is underway back at home in the greatest state of this country, that being the beautiful state of Indiana. But unfortunately for the rest of us, there's a lot of national news that just never seems to stop breaking. And that bad attitude really hits home the most for the Harris-Walz campaign. Now, the debate, the big, huge, massive, ultimate swing fest, likely the only debate between Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, and Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, is happening tomorrow evening. It is happening via ABC News, who, by the way, has been shifting the rules for using their footage all the ding-dong-dang day and all of last week. And we're trying to make sure that we follow all of the rules because, you know, lawsuits kind of suck, so that we bring you all of the information. Now, ABC News and CNN earlier this year hosting major presidential debates by themselves is a bit of an anomaly because the Biden administration and the Biden-Harris campaign, back when Joe Biden was somewhat still with us, they actually wanted the Presidential Commission for Debates not to run the debates this year. So they ended up being run by the networks themselves, which have created for other media outlets kind of a weird situation. Can you stream the debate? Do you have to go to ABC? What if you're on the radio? ABC News doesn't have a bevy of news stations in every part of the country. Like the entire state of Oklahoma basically wouldn't be able to receive ABC News coverage via radio. And so these rules have been changing. This is something that a lot of you guys don't see, but the way that the legacy media still has an iron grip on a lot of the rights and the means of how media is distributed, especially with something as important as a presidential debate that is probably one of the most critical elections in our nation's history, at least the most critical election in the last 36 years. Now, all of that said, Kamala Harris has now gone into hiding. She is in the locker room. She is in Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia, and she's kind of picture her like Rocky, right? She's in the training room. She's maybe in the meat locker, and she's supposed to be like, you know, swinging at the cow meat, right? She's like swinging, throwing some punches, and hopefully she's getting some good coaching. And, I certainly hope that she gets the right amount of coaching that she needs in, because the polls have drastically swung against her favor. Now, I'm more than happy to tell you that I was one of the pundits, and not in the majority, but one of the pundits who, maybe there aren't just particularly a few of us, who have said that the Kamala Harris momentum would cease to be a powerhouse, that this sugar high, this caffeine rush would turn into that caffeine crash that we all know and understand. When you're running on nothing, you can't just run on it forever. And Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz for that matter, had made such a show of sprinting away from the media, faking phone calls, or Tim Walz just going from picking donuts to sprinting out of the local supermarket as quick as his waddling legs could carry him, not even providing any good policies. And then when they are actually pushed to bring some policies to the table, well, that's when things get a little bit worse. That's when Kamala Harris suggests gun buybacks or price controls or very other weird, strange, and awkward policy flip-flops, from the southern border wall funding all the way down to, and I cannot believe that I am saying this, deciding that though she needs Michigan and Pennsylvania in the swing state electorate, still sort of kind of pushing the electric vehicle mandate, but kind of not pushing the electric vehicle mandate. It's kind of up in the air. And then she finally gets down to her big CNN interview. And Dana Bash and Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, for some reason, they're all sitting in this weird dark diner that I swear would have looked better in like a simple backyard instead of in a dingy dark diner with a folding table that the computer that I'm using is currently sitting on probably would have looked better than what they used. And they spent about 18 minutes of speech talking about some sort of policies, vaguely kind of answering questions, and then talking about, so Kamala, like, it's time to dish. Like, what did you think when you just got the call from Joseph R. Biden? Like, you can tell me, girlfriend, you can tell me. And Kamala answered it that way. I mean, she acted, well, I shouldn't be giving you no little TMI, the old too much information. Getting out the old Count from Sesame Street laugh going. And then she starts saying, well, I was like, I'm making pancakes, and my nieces want some bacon. Now, look, I'm all for making bacon and pancakes for your kids or your relatives. That's fantastic. I would love to see more politicians that actually cook for their family members. That's stellar. I like that. That's classic Americana. That is not what Americans care about in this election. Tell that story later. After you win the election, you want to take an hour after you've talked about policy and other things and then talk explicitly about some family story. Any media outlet on earth would gladly sit down with you, the vice president of the United States, and let you tell that story. Heck, I'll even do the soft focus, like kind of podcast editing where it just sounds so warm and wonderful. I would do it. Heck, why not? You want to tell a story like that about how cool it was for you as a person, and you just feel like you're a normal person, even though you're not, to get some kind of an amazing call that some of us always wonder what it would be like if we got some kind of a big call like that changed our lives forever. Okay, like, that's a cool story, but that's not what the main part of the only adversarial, if you want to call it that, mainline policy interview she has done since she has been on the campaign trail with her emotional support governor right next to her. And Americans have noticed. Americans have noticed because I told you that she was slipping in the swing state polls. She was already starting to slip, even though many people were making a lot of hay about the fact that the Kamala Harris Tim Walz polling push had her running even with Donald Trump, and man, even a point or two ahead in the Nationals. Wow! Everyone was so impressed. And I reminded you all that since the George W. Bush days, Republicans have always run down in the polls and have come back and done far better in the national vote, as well as in the swing state and the electoral kind of run-of-the-mills of which states are being pitched to, campaigned at, as the Electoral College votes move from state to state, given the population density. So here we are, with the polling numbers now no longer in Kamala's favor. This is the worst thing that could happen to her before the debate, because what Kamala really needed was to go into this debate tomorrow with a good 3-4 point lead in every single swing state. And then all she has to do is survive Trump. Just hide it. Hide the fact that she's an idiot. Hide the fact that she basically will have to have memorized every single line that comes out of her mouth, because Kamala never speaks off teleprompter and it goes well. There's not been a single time. The times that Kamala has gone off of teleprompter, we're going to list them and show them here. When she went off script and said, how dare you say Merry Christmas. When she went off script and talked about the significance of the passage of time. When she went off script and talked about how important it is to be unburdened by what has been. When she went off script and claimed to work for McDonald's, which was a lie. And literally every other time that she's gone off script. The entire debate is off script because the Kamala Harris campaign threw a fit that A, Kamala wouldn't be able to get another Mike Pence moment that, excuse me, I'm like, speaking, Mike. She's not going to get to do that with Trump. There's no opportunity because the mics are muted. The Joe Biden rules are still in play. And where they thought that it was going to be Trump who would suffer without notes, it turns out the guy who gets out and speaks in front of crowds and rambles on for an hour and a half every other day, well, big shocker, it turns out that that's actually not a problem for him as much, and it's Kamala Harris who's going to be like Mulan, reading the writing that she put on her arm to pass the matchmaker test in front of the entire country. It's not going to go well. Trump now up nationally 1 to 2 points, whether you look at the likely voter or the registered voter from the latest New York Times poll, is a disaster and a half for the Harris campaign. Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, even Michigan. I will remind you, Virginia is still in play. This is a serious issue for the Harris campaign. And if you think that the debate is going to be, you think there's going to be a debate after this? Get out of here. Where have you seen the media clamoring for more Kamala interviews after that Dana Bash one. You seen any? Washington Post? LA Times? Maybe someone on CNN, MSNBC? New York Times? Perhaps the Indy Star? Minneapolis Star Tribune? Columbus Dispatch? Oh, excuse me, that one shut down. Where are all of the calls? Where are all the clamor for the more Kamala interviews? We got to have it. No, that's only coming from the right, and that's for a very specific reason. We're going to get into some of the other breaking news from around the country when we get back. We're also going to talk a little bit to Jason Hammer over at 93 WIBC. We're going to place some bets, and these aren't the common sports bets. No, we're going to make some bets about the debate coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a blast. Stick around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC and the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated today, live from Nashville, Tennessee. And not really anywhere special at the moment. It's just breathtakingly gorgeous outside down here. And so despite the birds and the children outside and me kind of breaking several of the cardinal rules of broadcasting, I'm going to be broadcasting outside just in this beautiful backyard, little classic Americana, and bringing you the show today before I head over to the Daily Wire's Am I Racist theatrical premiere. That's by Matt Walsh, a friend of the show, and someone in the education line of work that I'd been in. That kind of critical race theory stuff's always been very interesting. So on my way to Washington to cover the debate with the rest of the Daily Signal crew and a lot of other special guests that we've got for you guys, I thought that we might stop off a little bit here in Nashville and talk just a moment about why everyone takes any news statement from Kamala extremely seriously, and why that's really, really bad for her campaign, and why on the offside, whenever Donald Trump does something that's maybe a little bit uncouth, that maybe might even be wise from a kind of a neutral campaign perspective, why that's kind of swept under the rug by a lot of people, including those on the left who despise him. And that all comes down to how much you are out in front of people talking real words during the day. Now, here's the deal. When I was a teacher, I talked a lot during the day. Believe it or not, I know this is very difficult for some of you to believe, I talked a lot more during the day than I do now. And there would be times during the day that after talking for so long, I would get mixed up, I would forget something, I would say something incorrect, I would say something stupid. Perhaps I would even do something that was not the wisest choice. And then I would have to be held accountable for that. Or, I would have to apologize for that. And it turned out that the longer the day had been, maybe the longer the week had been, the more leniency there was for a mistake that was made. Because think about it. What do you say after you've made a boo-boo at the end of the day? You say, it's been a long day. Now, here's the catch. Donald Trump is in front of the country 2-3 hours every single day, at least 3 to 5 times a week, at least. And he gets in front of his rallies. And a Trump rally is a unique experience. It's not for me. I've gone to a couple of them. I've covered a couple of them. Very interesting. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but they are very unique. And he gets out and just vamps for 90 minutes, for almost 2 hours at some rallies. He just goes on, talks about his policy, talks about what he likes, what he hates, does a little bit of comedy, does a little bit of dancing. He just does classic Trump. He does the entertainer thing. And because he talks that much per day, and he's also on Truth Social /X now, and he's constantly talking, when he says something dumb, or when he says or does something that's like, I don't know about that, he gets a little bit of leniency. Because after all, if you were in front of people all the live long day, Dinah, won't you blow something stupid every once in a while? Now, Kamala has the exact opposite problem, and it's very, very interesting to look at. Because Kamala gets out in front of the public, sort of, and she reads off of the script. Now, anyone who's listened to the show longer than 5 minutes know that I hate 3 things. Number 1, I hate bicycle lanes. Number 2, I hate mayonnaise. And number 3, I hate Lincoln Day dinners. Lincoln Day dinners are political dinners that are organized in the spring, and you get all of the political candidates and a lot of officials, and you bring them to this usually a really horribly awful catered, like 10 times worse than nursing home food with the backup cook style food. And you all gather around and everyone gives the same used car salesman speech, and it's memorized. And believe it or not, that's actually where I would find a bit of common ground with even journalists from publications that I despise, because we would sit there reciting these candidate speeches along with them, because I've heard this 8 times before. I hate that. There's nothing real about that. As many faults as Donald Trump has, and he has a ton of them, he doesn't stick to a script. He may stick to a policy that he talks about, but he tries to react to the crowd and provide what's on his mind. Now, sometimes that's great, sometimes kind of not so great. But it is something unique and real that people do seem to move towards. Kamala does the opposite. In fact, Kamala holds so much to her script, so much to what it is that she's trying to stay in the lines, as we talked about a little bit in the quick news roundup, that she's literally code switching the same speech from kind of an inner city Southern accent to kind of an upper class educated Northeastern accent, and then to kind of a folksy-ish kind of Midwestern with a slight hick twang accent. And this is where we got, of course, Kamala in Detroit and then Kamala in Pennsylvania saying the same kind of speech, you better thank a union member, or you better thank a union member. That kind of a thing doesn't really play well with people. Now, this creates a very unique situation for Kamala Harris when she does speak or when she does tweet, when she, as a campaign entity, as the Vice President of the United States, when she claims something or when she interacts with the community in a unique fashion, everyone looks, everyone listens. Now, sometimes in the industry, this is a very good thing. If you're not known for talking every single day, then when you talk, people listen. And when Kamala Harris issued a statement on former President Donald Trump going by invitation to Arlington National Cemetery to lay a wreath for the 13 troops who were killed during Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal, when Kamala Harris spoke about that, people said, whoa, Kamala's been claiming for the last couple of years she was the last person in the room. In fact, as you can see here, she said that very explicitly in the interview.
Afghanistan.
Yes.
Were you the last person in the room?
Yes.
And you feel comfortable?
I do.
So afterward, there was a little bit of controversy because apparently someone on the Trump campaign got a little bit gruff about wanting to take pictures, and there was some staffer at the Arlington National Cemetery who didn't want them to stand in this particular place, and there was a bit of a kerfluffle. Not something that offended the Gold Star family members, who is what everyone was there for. And there is a very long and detailed history about taking photos at Arlington National Cemetery. And by the way, I will make this very explicit point. It is a privilege of a president or vice president, by the way, or representative or senator, to go to Arlington National Cemetery, as every single American should be able to go to Arlington National Cemetery and take photos. It is a beautiful, very hallowed and sacred place. And if Trump wants to go there and take a couple of pictures because he deeply cares about the troops, as he's shown, and as, by the way, the troops seem to indicate in response, I'm just saying that's not exactly a bad thing. But the media threw a fit. And finally, Kamala Harris responded, and this is the worst thing that could have happened for her. Everyone listened. This is from Vice President Kamala Harris' Twitter X account. Because, if she actually went out and made a statement like this, it would be raked over the coals in a media ad from now through the election. You'll see why. She said, as vice president, I've had the privilege of visiting Arlington National Cemetery several times. It is a solemn place, a place where we come together to honor American heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service of this nation. So far, totally fine. And usually the first sentence or two in a statement like this is totally fine. And that's where they should stop. Stop typing. Put the phone down, intern. But she presses on. She says, it is not a place for politics. And yet, as was reported this week, Donald Trump's team chose to film a video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Let me be clear, the former president disrespected sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. That is a lie. And it's a lie of two kinds. Number one, it is a lie of association because, number one, Kamala Harris Barack Obama, Joe Biden, George W. Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney, and every other presidential candidate and half of the Senate candidates over the last 50 years have taken photos or filmed videos at Arlington National Cemetery while they were visiting. And you know who makes that decision, by the way? The campaign. Duh. You know what happens when the president goes somewhere? You take photos and videos of them going there. That's one of the reasons you have events. I'm sorry, it is a fact of life. When the governor shows up to a place, there's usually somebody there with a cannon or an icon hanging around their neck so they can snap a couple of photos. So spare me. But she continues. She says, "This is nothing new from Donald Trump. This is a man who has called our fallen service members suckers and losers and disparaged Medal of Honor recipients." That's been debunked a bunch of times, but Kamala's not going to mention the things that was reported on, not going to mention that even Snopes called that one false. She continues and says, "A man who during a previous visit to the cemetery reportedly said of fallen service members, 'I don't get it. What was in it for them?'" That's also been debunked. She says, "This is a man who is unable to comprehend anything other than service to himself. If there is one thing on which we as Americans can all agree, it's that our veterans, military families, and our service members should be honored, never disparaged, and treated with nothing less than our highest respect and gratitude." And she basically then says that it's my belief that someone who can't meet this requirement should never be president of the United States, and then promises to honor the service and sacrifice of Americans' fallen heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our beloved nation and our cherished freedoms. "I mourn them and salute them, and I will never politicize them." And that was the end of her statement. And people did not like it, and I'll tell you why. That entire wreath laying was for 13 troops who died because of decisions Kamala claimed part of. She ran around the country telling everyone she was the last person in the room. When it came to the Afghanistan withdrawal, she claimed that she was extremely proud of it. She had no regrets about it. She was invited to the wreath laying ceremony. And by the way, this isn't immigration. This isn't the economy. This isn't inflation. This isn't even spending and crime. This isn't education. This is a totally separate policy area that Kamala is willingly, unexplainedly carpet bombing herself on. And it is going to be disastrous for her anytime this is brought up. We'll be back in just a second. Stick around. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast, live from Nashville, nationally syndicated on the Daily Signal, first on 93 WIBC.
Before I got jacked, I was on the same track. Back up.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Hey, welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, with one of the most insane men I have ever had the pleasure of knowing, from Hammer and Nigel on 93 WIBC, as well as one of the greatest new podcasts that I'm sure those in your life that value responsible decisions will want you to avoid. The Degenerates Next Door. Jason Hammer, how's it going, man?
Oh, man, that is such a badge of honor for you to say that, because you've marched with Antifa at the DNC. You have rubbed elbows with these pro-Hamas lunatics. And for that level of, support that you gave me right there, I'll take that every time, my brother.
Okay, so you say take that every time, and now we're starting to get into the betting terms, all right? And this isn't sports betting, because I know that you could kick my tail three ways from Sunday. That's why you got to listen to the Degenerates Next Door if you want to know some of the ins, some of the outs, some of the inside outs of sports betting, what to do, what not to do. That's why you got to check their stuff out. I want to talk about the debate tomorrow, because everyone makes their little bingo card. Oh, if this happens, take a drink. No.
We got a bingo card.
I mean, the bingo card's good, but that's overdone. I want to make some money, or more importantly, I want to lose some money on this particular debate, because I want to know, what do you think is a surefire thing to happen? And I'm willing to put some money down right here, right now, so that I can totally not call you tomorrow during our post coverage and admit that I'll probably drop the check off at the Emmis building soon.
Oh, I've had some phone calls after bets. You're acting like I haven't woken up in a trunk before, but that's for another time. One thing I think you're going to hear Like, I don't think Kamala is going to have the opportunity to pull the I'm speaking bit. I just don't think she's going to have the opportunity with the muted mics. So the new I'm speaking will be convicted felon. She's going to try to remind the audience Donald Trump is a convicted felon as many times as she can. And when she does that, Twitter is going to explode. And yes, I still call it Twitter. You're going to have all these folks that are going to be saying, yes, queen, convicted felon. But that's all she's got. So I think it's an easy bet to make that Kamala will call him a convicted felon more than once.
I'm going to counter that with a $50 counter. As opposed to that, instead of that, what I think is going to be her big catchphrase is that she's going to fly in with a America, do you really want more of this old rambling? I think that's what she's going to say. She's going to try to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about, that he's like way too old and out of touch and angry. And then I think that after he finishes speaking, she's going to be making fun of the cranks. You know what I'm saying? I think that's probably kind of slipping in the move. What else you got? What else do you think are the big, huge things we can all look forward to?
Okay, this is something that I think will happen. Now, the last debate, Donald Trump, I thought he was perfect. Did not fight with the moderators. He was calm. He was cool until they brought up golf. And then the old man said, all bets are off. And he started talking about golf and the handicaps. So he can still go off the rails. At some point, Donald Trump, whether it's to the moderators or to Kamala herself, will call somebody nasty. Well, he's already called ABC, the network, nasty because he hates that little butt sniffer George Stephanopoulos so much. Now, George isn't the moderator here, but he hates ABC with the passion of a million fires. So if he feels like he can't respond to something or whatever, he'll circle back if he has to. Somebody's going to get called nasty.
I like that. I'm going to counter that one with a with another $50 bet in response here. That she did that. I'm gonna say that those three syllables are gonna come out to play. She did that. She did that. He did that. She did that. She'll do it again. That's what I'm saying. I don't have the Trump accent down like Nigel does, of course. So I'm gonna leave that one on the side of the road. But I gotta tell you, I think that the three syllables, the nasty, that's a hard one to go up against. But more likely than the nasty, you're gonna get she did that. You're gonna maybe even the hand toward the microphone. She'll do it again. I mean, come on, that's classic Trump, man. Three syllables, that's all you need. In, out, home for dinner.
And Trump's body language can be a real asset to him. I mean, go back to 2016 when they were allowed to walk around in that town hall style debate.
Best debate in U.S. history.
Lurking over Hillary, you'd be in jail. I mean, that was so strong. Just an eye roll from Trump. You're going to get a few eye rolls, a few head shakes, and then afterwards, he's going to make sure everybody understands that all the things Kamala says will change on day one could have been changed on her day one with Joe Biden almost 4 years ago.
Now, here's the next question I've got for you, and I'll take the first bet here on this one. I think that Trump is going to beat Kamala to using the word weird. He started using it recently, ever since Kamala and Tim Walz started going after JD Vance and making up weird crap to call him weird. I think Trump has come out and said, no, they're the weird ones. I think Trump's going to use weird far before Kamala does, and she might still use it, but I don't know. I think he's going to come out first on that one.
Okay, now I'm going to blow your mind on this one, but sometimes in betting, you bet on that long shot. The odds aren't great, right? The experts are telling you it's not going to happen. But every once in a while, the sun shines on a dog's rear end and the long shot horse wins the Kentucky Derby. Or Northern Illinois goes into Notre Dame and beats Notre Dame in their home opener like they did this past weekend.
Can we talk
Get
about
ready for this,
else, please?
Donald Trump will say, I'm speaking to Kamala Harris.
Oh! Boom! I want you to know that as you said that, the wind started blowing off of this house. I don't care if it got in the mic. I want that to be true. I thought about that. I don't know. I was exhausted. I think I just put the kids to bed and it just popped into my mind. Wouldn't it be great? I'll hit you with one long shot. This is the longest shot possible. I think that one of the candidates is going to do something that threatens to end the debate early. Either they like slam the mic down, either they walk off stage, or like they kind of walk away from the podium a little bit. I mean, they argue with the moderator back and forth, argue with them. I'm not talking about they have a couple of words. Oh, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, the Americans would like to hear. We've all seen that. I'm saying a little bit of Jerry Springer is going to seep. A little bit of Maury is going to seep into that debate state. That's my long horse. We could have them trying to keep it together, but oh man, like Kamala's got a little bit of that crazy. Trump's got a little bit of that. Don't talk about my golf. Oh man, please, Lord, the next season of The Apprentice Backroom. I want it so badly.
So here's another long shot for you. Because again, I'm a degenerate. I like taking some long shots. It's fun to root for. What are the chances you think Kamala Harris shows up drunk? Now, listen, I'm a guy that knows what a drunk sounds like. I work with Nigel every day. So I feel like I'm pretty confident that I can tell when somebody's a little glassy-eyed, they're speaking a little slower. Plus, the mayor of Indianapolis may or may not have a problem with that. That's where we live. So there have been rumors. There's scuttlebutt, dare we say, that, Kamala Harris, as Trump would say, Comrade Harris, which I think is beautiful, shows up intoxicated. And if that happens, I'm drinking with her because that is must-see television.
I am legally obligated to say that I have no idea what he was drinking on the live stream. I don't know what the FCC rules are for that. I don't care. This is the last question. We're running a little bit short on time here, and it's just the nature of the game. We're going to go super simple bets here. Does Donald Trump go with the bright red tie? Now that's the easy one. Does he go blue suit with it, or does he go black suit?
I think you're going to see blue suit with the red tie. The red tie will be there. That's the power tie, right? I'll go blue suit here. I think that's going to be his best look.
Okay. Kamala's got a million looks. She can do the Obama tan suit. She tried that. She can do the Hillary Clinton powder blue kind of Princess Diane pre-car crash kind of a suit. What does Kamala strut out drunkenly onto the debate stage? What's she wearing, Hammer? Like, what do you think?
I don't care. I just want her out there. I just want her for the first time to actually face a live television camera and have to answer things on her own. I don't want to see Tim Walz next to her. I don't want to see, editing, from the CNN staff. I want her out there. Like, this has to happen. It may be the only time, so Trump's going to take advantage of this.
I said this earlier on the show. I bet there's going to be a rumor that she has writing on her hands. Like Mulan, like when she's got the writing on her hands at the beginning of the movie for the matchmaker. I'm calling it. There's going to be a rumor. Someone's going to zoom in and be like, hey, are those notes? It's going to be like a weird arm hair.
Oh, this is how I used to cheat back in the day. Like they'd have like some fatter pens and pencils, right? This is the traditional pen.
Classic.
But sometimes you get those fatter ones, right? If it was a math class, I may or may not write a formula on there, really small, tape it on there. Just be slick with it and hold it close to yourself.
I would go index card between the legs. And then you're just having a really terrible time. You're like, oh, man, there's not a whole sheet of paper between my legs. And
the teacher never wondered why you were talking to your crotch so much, Johnny?
I eventually got caught. Yeah, because you have to sound the Spanish words out in Spanish too, Hammer. And apparently mumbling in Spanish to your legs, it gets a little weird after a while.
In my mind, you're looking down at your crotch. Ay, caramba! And then everybody just looks over. What the hell's wrong with this guy?
I was told growing up I was never supposed to conjugate verbs until I was married. So Jason Hammer from the Degenerates Next Door podcast, Hammer and Nigel on 93 WIBC. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!